Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of No Reserve, Hagerty's podcast about the enthusiast car market. Now, we're here to help you make sense of the market, whether you're buying, selling, or just watching. Now, this week, we're talking BMWs and the kids because they love them. We're also covering a $3 million Koenigsegg No Sale, an upcoming CTS-V with a stick auction, and more of the hottest auctions on the interwebs. I'm Larry Webster, editor of Hagerty Media, and I'm joined by Dave Kinney, publisher of the Hagerty Price Guide. Between us, we've got decades of experience buying, selling, and driving the cars we love. Plus, we're not just guessing at the values, we're backed up by the data of the Hagerty valuation tools. All right, let's get into it. All right, we're recording this on Wednesday, May 3rd. Just getting into the height of the driving season, Dave. It's always been interesting. And one thing I'd like to talk to you about is an article that just was on insider.hagerty.com, and it was about BMWs and the next generation. Do you have a chance to look at it?
I sure did, man. It's a really interesting piece. It's a little bit surprising in a lot of ways. In some ways, it's just the natural progression. But baby boomers, again, we're stepping out. Millennials taking over.
Yeah. Are you surprised that, we know that's a trend in general. We were just looking at the Hagerty quote volume the other day, and the generation called Gen Z, which I think is born around the year 2000, is going up, and the quote volume from like the boomers are going down a little bit. However, what they found was that these BMWs are especially popular, and that was a little bit surprising to me that this one brand spoke out. I've got some thoughts about that, but what jumps into your mind?
I think that we've seen the E46 M3s, the Z3s, the E39s. We've seen such a lot of activity in these cars, and it is kind of surprising because to me a BMW, bought first time by the attorney or the person who works at the lawyer's office or the dentist or whatever. You don't think of it as a car that might have appealed across generations when back in the day it was kind of a serious commuter car. But now these things are being hooned. They're being raced in all kinds of ways. They're just unbelievable amount of accessories that people put on these cars, and it's made them a lot more flexible and I guess a lot more enduring to different generations.
Yeah, one of the things that's fascinating to me is like the E34 generation M5. So it's only a 2-year model from 91 to 93. That gained 25% or about 24% in value just in the past year, which is kind of a big jump in a market which, fact check me here, Dave. Last year was not a great growth market for the enthusiast vehicles, right? But this BMW is really bucking that trend.
Absolutely. I think that, Pontiacs and Chevrolets are, in a lot of cases treading water. Well, some of these BMWs are just increasing in value incredibly dramatically. The other thing is that they've proven to have such a long life. I mean, you look at them in the standard ad that you read, it's like 210,000 miles, 180,000, 300,000 miles. Which is a lot different than a lot of other cars. They seem to have not a second life, but not just a second life, but a third life as well.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I have an E36 M3, and it's my second E36 3 Series. I just love that crisp body style. And the community of enthusiasts for this car and the parts supplier from Pelican Parts to Bimmer World. To your point, they have them figured out. Like, they'll tell you, like, how many miles you got in the car? Like, oh, 80,000. Well, did you do the radiators yet? Nope. Well, they got plastic tanks. Go replace the radiator. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
and buy two while you're at it if you're
Right.
planning on keeping the car because you're going to need it again. I know.
So
Uh,
there's a real ecosystem keeping these things on the road. That said, one thing that does surprise me a little bit, especially like what they call the E9X and the F80 generation M3s, which are about the 2010-ish and newer, there's a lot of moving parts on those things. They're not simple cars, yet they're still very, very popular among Gen Z and millennials. Does that surprise
yeah,
you?
yeah. It's funny because my appeal is to the Z3s and even the Z4s. I like both of them. I
Yeah.
know blasphemy to say you like a Z4, although that's changing. But I like the kind of built-in simplicity that they have compared to an M5 or something like that. So uh, you know, I guess the other thing that we should say is there's so many choices in this
Oh,
BMW world. I mean, they made some cars, like you said, for a 2-year time span, a few for a 4-year time span, and then changed out the models. So there's all these choices out there for people who want we're just going to say the word classic, a classic BMW.
yeah. I mean, the ones that stick out in my mind are they did this model. It was called the ZHP, I think is it was like it wasn't the full M3 and it wasn't a regular 328. It was kind of in the middle, and they didn't make a ton of them. And the changes weren't huge, but they were just right. It had a nice suede steering wheel, some right stripes. Those are pretty rare birds if you can find one of those, but awesome, fun enthusiast cars, even though they're four-door sedans. I mean, it's kind of amazing. The tastes are changing.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting all the way around, and I think that you could do a case study on BMWs and forget every other car that was a possible choice. I mean, at the upmarket you could go to a Benz. There are some choices there, but most of those things are not doing as well in the marketplace in terms of enthusiasm and catching on with the younger generation.
Yeah.
And then you can go backwards into the Toyota and the Subarus and things like that, which were less expensive when new. But they're all different markets. I mean, I've been talking all along about how bifurcated the market is, and that means cut in half, by the way, or at least cut into two.
Thank you, Dave. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I know. I just see. I did that especially for you, Larry. But anyhow, the whole idea is that all these cars are moving in separate markets, much more so than they ever have been. I think that'll come around maybe by next year or something like that. But wow, BMW enthusiasts are ruling their world.
So you mean
They're definitely doing it.
the BMW market on its own? It's its own market, not like the BMW models specifically are their own
Exactly.
markets. Okay.
Exactly. I
Yeah.
mean, I think people decide on BMW and then they don't cross shop from there as part of what we're talking about.
I see. So we were talking about the E30 M3. That was the first M3 in the 80s and how expensive those cars are. I mean, they are super cool, let's face it, but they're six-figure cars now. But all the BMWs that we featured in that article are very attainable under $50,000. So suddenly this car that was like a premium German brand is very much an attainable enthusiast car for your fun machine, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And so, how many times do we have to say this? I mean, I've been around the old car world for longer than you two guys have been alive, as far as that goes, or all of us. Most all of us are. But in the meantime, there is no kids these days don't want cars. Oh my
Oh,
God,
yeah,
is that wrong? I mean,
totally. Yeah.
it's like and if you have to refresh your memory on that, you can do it from your sofa. You can watch a Mecum auction. You can watch a Barrett Jackson auction. I suggest you go out and take a look. Look, Broad Arrow's got this Porsche auction coming up. I bet you the average age that's going to be there is about 35 years old, not 65 years old, and
Yeah.
that's a big, big difference. So we're all good.
Yeah, the one thing, if I could just end on this, and you can tell me if I'm full of it or if this is true. The one thing I've always noticed, because I spent a lot of time in these BMWs, working at various car magazines. The thing that always fascinated me when they came out with that Z3 Roadster that was in the Bond movie, they followed it up with the Z4. You drive any of those cars, maybe not the M Roadster versions, the real souped up ones, but the regular ones, they are like cruisers. They do not feel very crisp and sporting. For that kind of agile handling, the BMWs you want are the sedans, and especially the 3 Series. I always found that super interesting, and I guess it makes sense. They're the founder of the sports sedan, but it's certainly true, I think. Don't you?
Yeah, you can live the enthusiast dream with three of your friends, and that's pretty cool. But yeah, I mean, we're talking a few Mercedes Benz that hold true to that. Obviously, some of the GR Toyotas and the Subaru WRXs and things like that hold true to that. But mostly, when you're talking enthusiast cars, you're talking straight on sports cars, roadsters, something like that. But in this architecture, the four doors rule and are doing quite well.
Yeah, and then maybe I'll gonna pick my favorite, and let's see. I'll give you a minute to pick yours, but the one that's not talked about because it's pretty rare. I want to say it's a 2013 or 2014 model year. It was the 1 Series. They called it the M Coupe, and that had the twin turbo straight six, just sporty enough. It was kind of felt like really an original M3 in that its size. It was nice and tight. super duper fun. And that is one of those sleeper collector cars. If I had one or found one, I would go buy it, but you just don't see them. How about you? What's your pick?
Actually, it's the one car we haven't talked about. It's the Z8. I really like the
Oh,
Z8s. I always have. I always will. I mean, there's that retro look to it. And, of course, the press damned it as the German Corvette and
it
all that
is.
sort of stuff. Yeah. So what? So what if it's a German Corvette? What's wrong with that? I
Because
mean,
it's
it's
like
a
3 times the price of the Corvette.
well, that's okay. Yeah, there's an argument for that, but boy, is that for another day. I'm not going to not defend the Corvette here, and I'm not going to defend the Z8. But I think
So
you know, it,
the Z8, cool choice, no doubt. Really cool car, kind of roomy, usable. They're pricey. Do you think they've got room to go up? I don't remember. They've only made about what, 1,500 of them or so?
no, I think it was more than that. I
Oh,
think, well, yeah, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I think it was more like 2,500, and that
okay.
might have just been for the American market. But yeah, I mean, well, we got almost all of them. They've been importing them back to Germany for a long, long time. Yeah, there is room left in the Z8. It's a, gosh, I'm going to have to use the I word. It is an iconic car. And was expensive from the beginning, never really depreciated all that much, and I think there's still room left in them.
Well, it really did. It had the sort of the singular BMW V8 powertrain, that 4.4 liter V8 with that 5-speed gearbox. I mean, that is I wish everybody could drive those things. That is the definition of like silky smooth, that package. Really pretty nice. So, okay, I guess I'm not going to be able to make fun of you on the Z8 pick, Dave, unfortunately. But the one thing that did catch my eye this past week was a car that sold on Bring a Trailer. It was a 2021 Koenigsegg Regera. And it's a used car, right? Because it's new. It's 2 years
Mhm.
old. It's
Yep.
sold for $2.74 million. And go ahead.
I was totally out at 2.6. How about you? I,
My limit
that
was 2 million. Yeah, right.
yeah, really. No, what a cool car. And, I guess everybody always says, you'll never see another one coming your way and all that sort of stuff. Hell, you're never going to see another one of these at even the most high end of car shows. It's just a amazing, shape shifting size and, look of the car, the paint work, everything. It was just a truly unbelievable car all the way through. 2.740 million. The funny thing is, how do you say no? How do you say yes? How do you say that was a good buy? How do you say somebody wasted money? I don't think it was a waste of money. I think it was a cool car. But it's definitely, the Picasso of the future. It's kind of a
Wait, Dave,
not
what the hell's a Picasso?
Okay, Pegaso was made in the era of the 50s and yeah, maybe into the 60s, kind of a Ferrari competitor.
Oh, okay.
Really, really cool car that was made in Spain, and that's why it's the Koenigsegg's not from one of the central Italian towns that almost every car comes from
Yeah.
or is born in. It's a completely different car, and it's a little off on the side. Also, the Pegaso kind of famous for the fact that it's not, I'm not going to say very hard to work on. It's a little bit picky. I think in about 20 years, you're going to have like 8 or 9 people who, can repair the Koenigsegg's around the world unless they take off and do better. Of course, they have had a good couple of years. They've sold a lot of cars. But not a car that you normally see at the dealership here and wherever you are, USA.
Yeah, I mean, it's really fascinating. I first met Christian von Koenigsegg, boy, it must have been 25 years ago. I went over to Sweden to do a story with him. His shop was still in a Pippi Longstockings kind of barn. And, I've seen so many really brilliant people that want to build a sports car. And you listen to them, nicely, and you walk away and you're like, yeah, they're crazy. It's never going to work. And I said that. And God, was I wrong. And here we are, and these cars are highly valued. But interestingly, some of the commenters in that auction pointed out that a LaFerrari is still worth quite a bit more than this Regera. So there is a bit of a penalty for not having that blue chip name, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, it's I call them explainer cars. Even when you go to a car show, you have to tell people what it is. Now, more and more people know what a Koenigsegg is, and obviously, they've built 80 of these. 80, they say, of these examples were built, but you're still not going to see too many of them. In the United States, you might see a few more in Europe. I'm not sure, what their actual countries that they went to, when new, but. It's a $3.2 million car in 2021. So took a little bit of a hit there if they paid list for it. But what a car! What a unbelievable color combinations, and
Yeah, that's cool.
of course, not exactly. Talk about, we were talking earlier about BMW four-door sedans. This doesn't have any of that practicality whatsoever.
No, I mean, if I had the dough, I would seriously consider it because, Christian is like a modern day Enzo and he's still here. And
Hmm.
his heart and soul and his character are in these cars without fail. What continues to really intrigue me is that the trend for a while now has been these very low volume new sports cars appreciating very quickly after they leave the showroom floor. This one didn't. It only bid up to 2.75 million, and like you said, it was sold new over 3, but the LaFerraris are going for more, the 918s are going for more than they sold. I think the P1s are. I can't imagine that the AMG 1 is going to go down, that Gordon Murray. I mean, they're always going to be worth value. So, I keep wondering, Dave, like more and more of these seven-figure sports cars are offered for sale every year, new. When does that market get saturated? Are you seeing anything that'll tell you like this party's about to end? That's my question for you.
Well, I think the Bitcoin
Oh,
Bros, that's one of the reasons why the party might be just about ready to wrap up. I mean, that Bitcoin money's still there. Some of it, or the people who invest like that, but there's still plenty of wealth out there. You and I have most of it, Larry. I know, and we share it with a few other
yeah, that's why I'm
people,
doing
but.
this podcast, Dave, for sure.
Exactly, exactly. That's why I'm sitting in a hotel room in Wichita, Kansas right now, too.
It's like the Riviera. What are you talking about? Come on.
Yeah, the Kansas Riviera, easily. But yeah. But no, I mean, there's a lot of people with a lot of money that are willing to spend it on toys. And, until that changes, both equations, people willing to spend money on toys and the fact that there's a lot of people with a lot of, mostly newly found wealth out there buying these cars. We have a ways to go. I mean, all we have to do is drive around the streets of Miami or Los Angeles, and we'll see some of it within a few minutes.
I keep wondering. On one hand, I feel like, okay, if I had the money, I got a allotment or a place to buy a Ford GT, the new one.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I didn't have the money, but three of us were going to go in and we said, okay, we're going to, you're not supposed to flip those things, but we were like, yeah, we're probably going to flip it because I don't know what we're going to do with it. But God, I really want it. And, we'd be okay. But then when you started hearing about the numbers of cars going up, the production, I just got cold feet and we bailed. But again, I was wrong. And, I keep thinking like how many special edition 911s can go for $400,000 2 years out of the showroom? And they keep happening. And I do feel like, I don't want to be Chicken Little, but I feel like we're something like you said, maybe it was a Bitcoin thing. Maybe there's just the volume's up, something's shifting. And I don't know. Tell me
Yeah,
I'm wrong, Dave.
I'd love to tell you you're wrong, but another rare instance where you and I probably agree on this.
Hmm.
I think that it might be a good time to buy your dream car and have the fun that you want. But there's a whole bunch of factors out there that might make it a little bit more difficult. I mean, our economy in the U.S. here is looking like it's a little bit weaker all the time, so we might be heading into a recession. Maybe that'll be something that dials this back. But I got to tell you, there's just so much money out there coming from so many sources right now. And it's not just people dying and getting daddy's money, it's actually creating wealth as well. So,
Hmm.
but always a good time to buy a new Chevy Bolt or a Honda or something like that, right? That's much more along
Well,
our lines.
all right, Dave. There's something I'm very excited to talk to you about because I know you know a lot about it, and I think you're gonna like this even more because I'm about to make whatever I said 5 minutes ago. I'm about to turn it up on its ear and prove maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. And it's this. It's a 1932 Chrysler that was sold by Gooding, and the reason it was fascinating to me was it fetched $1.6 million. It is a beautiful car, and I want you to tell the listeners what exactly it is. But again, why is this worth as much as a Duesenberg? So I know you know a lot about it. Tell us why this car is worth that kind of dough.
All right, we could spend the rest of the podcast talking about this, but we're not going to. It is a
No,
19.
Dave, pre-war cars have limited interest. You know that, right, Dave?
Hey, I got to tell you, once again, now you're wrong. Look, if you show a picture of this car to anyone, just anyone, show it to your grandma, show it to your grandkids. I mean, it's just unbelievable.
Why?
This 32 Chrysler CG Imperial, it's a custom roadster. This car was customized in period. Okay, let's just get that out of there. There was not this is not an all stock car. There were things
Oh,
done to it to hot rod it in period. So it was done like in the 30s by one of the owners. Now I know that they changed some of those things back before they sold. So this car's had modifications probably throughout most of its life. The windshield is slanted. The look of the top. Even this car even looks good when the top is up. This was part of the Mark Smith estate auction that Gooding held in Virginia. Because I live in Virginia, it was required by law that I go to that auction, and I did. It was a strange auction. It was not particularly super well attended, but boy, did they hit it out of the ballpark. This is $1.6 million, by the way, the most expensive Chrysler of all time. Now, one of the
wait, it's
things.
not gonna be one of those TC LeBarons? I think those things are gonna be movers. Lee Iacocca said they're gonna be huge.
Yeah, I'm thinking that you definitely invest in the TCs. Get the one with a Mitsubishi engine for
I've
sure.
got
So
3.
okay,
Help
good,
me.
good, good. And I'm sure that the raccoons living in them now really enjoy them. But
Okay. Sorry, I
get
interrupted you, but I had to throw that in there.
1.6 million. 1.6. It's a lot of money. You're right. I mean, to say Duesenberg money is correct. It's Packard plus money. I think the beauty of this car is that it's an 8-cylinder engine. It's a straight 8, so they were able to make the hood itself quite small. So it's not like this bulging hood type of car with the fenders that are interfering. It's
Oh.
just a really, really well done car. Mark Smith knew his cars very, very well. I've known Mark since I was basically since I was a teenager when I first got involved in the old car hobby. An unusual person for sure, but he had a great eye for automobiles. This car was on the lawn at a lot of different concours. It did
So
very, very, very well. And when he died, this was the gem of the collection.
so if I could just pepper you a little some questions. I understand it was modified. The body was modified in period, which would have been in the 30s. But the way I understood these cars, the way they were built, is they were rolling chassis, so they were all kind of modified in period. But this sounds like it was hot rodded. Was it done by somebody that was a known designer? Because I agree with you saying the proportions of this thing are what really sell it. It's really long and thin and sleek, and listeners will be able to see it via the link, but anything to point to that? 'Cause I don't see any, like, names. It's not like it was a Boyd Coddington hot rod or something like that, was it?
Well, it would have been Boyd's granddad who did it, I think, at the day.
Right.
No, it was sold to an ophthalmologist or something. It was sold to a doctor in Philadelphia when it was new, and
Huh.
he had the car until 1963. So this was not a designer's car. This
Oh,
was not
wow.
a known hot rodder's car. But what he basically did was absolutely hot rod it back at the period, but not so much the performance mods. It was all about the styling mods that he did to this car, and for some reason it just works. I mean,
It does work.
I've shown the picture of this car to literally 100 people. I would pop it up on my iPhone and say, "What do you think of this car?" And everybody who looked at it would say, "Man, that's a good looking car." And once you saw it in person, it was a showstopper. It just happened to be the right car at the right time with the right owner.
Yeah.
I think there's only like 4 or 5 owners this car's had in its entire lifetime. It is not. It is absolutely not a car that's been babied all its life. It is a survivor mostly, and
I
it's kind
see.
of presented in survivor condition. I'm going to say this. I'm going to say this right in public. At 1.6, this car was cheap. It went to a
Whoa.
collection in Pennsylvania, so it goes back to its original state. I'm sure it'll be on display very shortly if it's not on display right now. And so I think a lot of people are going to be able to see this. It's the center point of a collection. And again,
Why are you being
let's
so cagey about it? Who is it? Where is it?
it's Three Dog Garage. I mean, I saw
Oh.
them. The principal, one of the principals, bidding on it, so it's going to be in Three Dog Garage. I don't know if it's on display yet, but it's in central Pennsylvania, so it'll be available to be seen.
So what I'm hearing is a normal Chrysler CG isn't worth close to this money.
A really, really nice one, is going to top out close to $1 million. I've seen really, really nice ones sold, but they don't have the line of this car. They don't have the look of this car. I guess what I'm saying is this guy hit it out of the park by doing what he did back in the day to make
Yeah.
it look the way it does.
So-
And here's a rare example. No harm, no foul. The guy did stuff to it and modified it and made it his own. 2 generations later, it sells and becomes the most expensive Chrysler ever.
It's really, the patina is amazing. I encourage everybody to go look at it. So, okay, so this is a special one-off car. I mean, I guess, I'm trying to figure out, Dave, does this tell us that these pre-war cars don't have to be Duesenbergs or Bentleys to be valuable to the next generation? Or do you think this one traded hands in that typical age range, the boomers and above? What happened?
It's funny because I think this one definitely goes cross generations. I think
Okay.
that the next buyer of this car, this collection might have it for, who knows, 50, 100 years, but the next buyer of this car will be just as interested in the design and the look of the car, because it's just, if you had to put all the elements together of a great looking pre-war car and have them all in one car, this is about it. It's long, it's low, it has sloped windshield, it has rakish fenders, it has not overdone wheels. They're wire wheels, but they're painted. It doesn't have too much chrome. It's kind of got it all.
Gatsby-esque is what you're saying.
Yeah, something like that.
I could tell you're very enthusiastic about this car, Dave. I want to give you all the space possible to express your emotions about it. Have we done that? Is it time to move on, or is there more you want to say about it?
Anything else would be duplicative at this point, but
I didn't know you knew that word. Good for you.
Yeah, every year I pick up 4 or 5 new words, and I just try and throw them out there, usually in an appropriate way. So yeah.
Okay, because I want to move on to something that's a little more my speed. Selfishly, this was a car that sold at Bonhams at the Goodwood members meeting auction. And this is a race car. It's a 1999 Subaru Impreza WRC car. It was driven by Richard Burns. Richard Burns, hugely talented driver. He was the driver after the very famous Colin McRae. Both of them are not with us anymore, sadly. McRae, hugely talented, crash-prone driver, passed away in a helicopter accident. Richard Burns, I don't know if it was cancer, but I'm pretty sure it was a brain tumor, sadly. And these cars are built by ProDrive. We talk about rally cars. We talk about this era called Group B in the 80s. But now folks are really starting to recognize that these crazy built production-based cars, when Subaru and Mitsubishi were really going at it in the 90s, are hugely desirable. This one sold for about $500,000. I am not surprised. I think this is a fantastic car. I don't know what your thoughts are on these, if they kind of just go, whatever, but I couldn't wish more that I could buy this one.
Oh yeah, I think these cars have great appeal to a lot of people. I'm a Subaru owner. Mine is a WRX STI. Obviously, it is a it's the poor boys version of the rally cars. But rally put these cars on the map. It put a whole bunch of different cars on the map. This was a stage winner in the 2000 WRC Monte Carlo Rally. It's a Works WRC participant. Really well-known history of this car. Not surprising. This price did not surprise me one little bit. I think that it was 450 some odd thousand pounds.
Yeah.
At like you said, $500,000 worth every penny. This car cashes those checks that the other ones think they can write. This is the real deal with great drivers, and was there, participated in this stuff and survived.
Dave, do you got patience for a little bit of storytelling from me?
Oh, yeah. Let's do it.
So I actually went to ProDrive shop and I drove Colin McRae's version of this car, which was a couple of years newer. And you go to ProDrive, it was, I want to say, Banbury, and right kind of in the middle of Motorsports Alley in the UK. And they had these body shells, these Impreza body shells with people were spending weeks seam welding the bodies on these things that the drivers might just throw away in a crash. But the things that really strike me about the appeal of these things is I think it's overlooked. Most race cars that you buy, vintage ones, you can't drive them on the street. These cars they come with a plate. I don't know what it would take to get it plated in the US, but I bet you could because it's right around maybe over 25 years. And since they're off-roader cars, they have ground clearance. They've got suspension that can drive. So you own this thing, you can drive it to Cars and Coffee. I'm not a guy who likes to go pimping, but I think a lot of people do. And this is the Cars and Coffee mic drop, even more so than like a McLaren Senna. Yeah, you agree?
Oh yeah, totally, totally. Now
Yeah.
you might want to do something about the exhaust if you're going to a Cars and Coffee that starts at 7 in the morning, because you will wake up not only the neighborhood you drive by, but the one next to it. But what a sweet noise it makes! What a fun story this car tells. Unfortunately, like most of these cars, it'll probably wind up in a museum where it's not used all that often. Let's hope it winds up someplace where it does continue to get used, because
Yeah.
this car needs motion to tell its story.
Oh, they're super fun. And at this era was highly restricted in terms of horsepower. So they only had about 300 horsepower. And they had standard Hewlin H pattern gearboxes. We were at this test track with I was in the car with Colin McRae, and he took me around, and he could turn on this English accent. Maybe you could demonstrate for people here, Dave, that I think he did it purposely so I couldn't understand it. I would just look at him and be like, "What?" And he'd look back at me, "Oh, blah, blah, blah." What?
Yeah, he
And
just
then
he just
yeah,
wanted to make sure that you couldn't take any notes about what he was saying.
he
That's
wanted me
all.
to feel stupid. But then I drove the thing and slid it around the mud, and it was, because you could do any of these things. You could tour around with it. You could take it to a track day. As long as you get one, this is what I would look for. And I wouldn't be so particular about race history. Like if I could buy the spare car, that is what I would want. One that wasn't beat on like crazy but went through the entire same build process. I think that's what I would want more than anything. And that's probably not the value car you want in appreciation, but I think that'd be the car to own.
The funny thing is, it just occurs to me that cars like this are, if you only want and you only have room for one car,
Yeah,
and not only in your garage, but maybe in your life, this is one of those, yeah, I'll sell everything else and have this one car. It's that important.
it
It's
is,
that
isn't it?
fun. It's that
Yeah.
cool. And boy, is it that fast as well. So a great story, great car.
So $500,000, you're telling me it's gonna appreciate.
Well, it's not going to appreciate like some other cars, because it takes okay, drivers. With race cars, we're always talking about what races they won and
Yeah.
what drivers that were associated
Okay.
with it. So
Yep.
this
Yep.
is this has got the drivers associated with it, not a problem. It wasn't exactly the dominating car in World Rally at any point, but it was a important car in that thing. So yeah, there's room left in it. It'll probably go up better than inflation does. And with what inflation's doing, that's pretty good anyway, right?
Okay, if I'm reading between the lines, because you've been in your business for a long time, you can't promise anything. I understand that. That what I interpreted was, yeah, a little bit, but not huge gains.
Yeah. And your
Okay,
point
that's what you're saying.
and
Okay.
your point is?
I want to be sure. That is, I mean, that's helpful and insightful. As excited I am about this thing, thinking it's a great investment. What you basically just said is like, you got to buy this thing because you love it. If you're buying this thing because of investment, you're off base.
Well, look, it's a specialty car. I mean,
Mm.
there are plenty of kids out there saying, "Boy, would I love a WRC rally car." And I just said rally, but we say ATM machine as well. So I'll let that one pass. But anyhow, the long story short is that it's a specialty car. It's not like the one that goes on the wall of everybody. The poster car as anything other than a race car. So yeah, you can use this car in the United States. You can get Florida plates on it, whatever. You can't do that in Sweden. You can't do that in a whole bunch of places. So it doesn't have that
Mm. Mm.
availability for use in absolutely every country and absolutely every circumstance. However, yes, it's going to appreciate, in my humble opinion. But like I always say, my crystal ball was built by Lucas, and it's out for repair again. So.
Well, I get it. Thank you.
Mm.
I think I'm I haven't. I was about to call the bank for a third mortgage on my house, but maybe I'll stop. Well, let's move on. Let's go on to the next segment, which is cars that are going to be the auctions that are closing in the next week or so. And the one I was another car I was really excited to talk about you because this car I was super geeked about. It's on the Hagerty Marketplace auctions. It's a '66 Chevy Corvette LS3. It's a resto mod. So this is what they call that mid-year, the second generation Corvette. It's a coupe. I think this body style is freaking dynamite. One of the most gorgeous American cars ever made. It always worked best for me in a dark color. This thing is just, it has, I mean, I can't stand the wheels. I think that's a sin, but easily changed. But, right, it's got an LS3. It's got an updated transmission, updated brakes, air conditioning. Somebody's subbed in a split window in the back, which it didn't come with because that was only a 63 model year.
Yep.
So this is why this is like what I call resto mod tribute. I love working in this zone where the real collectors, they don't want anything to do with it. They think it's some sort of bastard, but I love it because I get all the experience and the style, functionality at some bargain, although I have no idea what this thing's going to go for. That's why I'm excited to watch it. Does this car do anything for you, or are you like, it's been butchered? Where are you on this one?
I'm kind of ambivalent, but I appreciate it for what it is. Now let's go back just a little bit. I believe in January this year at Barrett Jackson, we saw a '63 split window that was resto modded that sold for more than a completely restored, correctly done Bloomington Gold NCRS car. It sold at like 363,000 from memory, something like that. Just absolutely crazy money, to me. But but the resto mods are all about the build quality.
Who built it?
What the features are. Whose chassis it has. All those sorts of things. This has the LS3 motor. It's at a ridiculously cheap price right now. I'm sure this will go way, way up because it's a long lead auction. But the build quality looks fantastic. I absolutely agree with you that dark colors are better for the mid-year, the 63 through 67 cars. I have no idea why somebody put a split window in other than the fact they just wanted a tribute to a 63 only. It's kind of crazy to me, but to each their own. These cars are really, really making numbers in the marketplace, and I think that a lot of people are really, really excited about the fact you can have this look of a '63, drive it, use it every day. It has air conditioning that's more than a mouse blowing over an ice cube to keep you cold, all that sort of stuff. So that's all good. It'll have brakes that actually stop the car. In '65 was the first improvement in Corvette brakes back in the day. I mean, I get that people like these things. It's not my cup of tea, but I enjoy the fact that they're out there. And this is kind of the other funny thing you can say is all the snobs who, has to be numbers correct, has to be this, has to be, all the fiberglass has to date from the correct year and all that sort of stuff. This is the antithesis of that. This is just like,
can you date code fiberglass? I didn't know you could do that.
No, but people, the white fiberglass versus the gray fiberglass.
Is that a thing?
That's a thing, man. It's a thing. But anyhow, and you have to have the correct edges on this, and the grill has to have the little clip in the center, and all this sort of stuff. This is the antithesis of that. This is like nobody cares. We just want the look. We want the car to drive. We want it to have fun with. And what's wrong with that? So I have no arguments about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I asked questions in the comments on the auction, and the seller jumped back in, and this car was purchased through Mecum in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
And it has quite a big list of top shelf parts. Street shop chassis, a Tremec 5-speed. It's got a Corvette C6 suspension. It's got the power and heated C6 seats, Z06 brake rotors, power steering. I mean, power windows. All this stuff. I haven't driven it. That is where your point is. The proof is in the pudding. Who built it? Did they integrate all this stuff? But I'll just say, even if it's not perfectly integrated, get everything to fit and work, and then you can tinker on it. Is a possibility. I don't know. I'm sort of kicking myself for talking about this car because I don't want anybody else to bid on it because I will be bidding. But such a cool thing.
Give me your handle. I'll make sure I always go in for 500 more. How's that?
Okay, another one, and this is going to be fascinating to watch too. It's also on the Hagerty Marketplace, and you can go to that by go Hagerty.com, and there's a little tab that says Marketplace, or you just search Hagerty Marketplace. You'll come to the auctions. Is a CTS-V wagon from 2011, another GM product. What's your guess on is going to happen with this one?
You know, it depends on a number of different factors. I haven't checked the Carfax on it and all that sort of stuff. A lot of people like these cars can be optioned up in a whole bunch of ways. They can be optioned with sport seats, but the most important option of all is the 6-speed, and this car has it. I have come very, very close to pulling a trigger on these cars before. I really like the look.
You do?
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Oh, no, big fan. I like the look. I like the fact.
Do you like the white?
No, that's not my favorite color. Definitely not my
got it.
favorite color. They have that electric blue, they have the red, they have the black, a couple of other colors. This was probably, I really not a white fan. If I wanted another refrigerator, I'd buy one. But
It doesn't show dirt, Dave. What are you talking about? Or waves in the paint?
yeah,
Come on.
you know
know that.
I get the monthly subscription at the car wash, so I can wash as much as I want. So there you go. Not that I think I'd take a CTS-V wagon to that, but hey. Anyhow, I love the look. I love the fact that it happened. That's the coolest part of this story is like, okay, well, Cadillac was doing this and doing that, and a whole bunch of other things are going on. They went and they made this, kind of almost impossible wagon that went incredibly fast. Was literally the 100-mile drive it all day cruiser that you'd expect only the Europeans to have. It's right now at stupid, crazy, cheap money at 15. It's not going to do 150, but it's probably going to close a lot closer to 100 on either side of 100. So who knows? 89. 105. I haven't drilled down and looked at all the bona fides on this car, but it sure does look nice.
Okay, that's instructive because I was really curious. I'm in the automotive journalist community, and everybody gets really excited about wagons with stick shifts. And it's one of those weird things that like any community has their quirks. And I was just curious if the broader enthusiast market really appreciated these wagons like we do, because this thing, let's be real, I don't think it sold that well when it was new. This was a Bob Lutz special. We should all bow down to Bob Lutz.
Maximum Bob.
He lives right down the street. I have lunch with him every so often. He is a fantastic, wonderful human, and he loves his stuff, and he brought us some great cars. But this was not one of those hugely going off the showroom floor, paying more for sticker cars, oddly. So, but in its now 10 years on, people are realizing, oh, how did we not see this when it was here? Because they didn't, how many of these could they have made? They didn't make that many. I don't know if you know.
Yeah, I don't know the exact number. And of course, because it's GM, there's a whole line of options you could get in the car. So, almost all of them are one of one or one of two or one of three when you drill down with the options and the equipment. You could get it, of course, with an automatic, but who would want to do that in this car? So actually, the automatic's fine for a lot of people. I get it. They're going to enjoy that even more. I want a 6-speed, so this is the car I want.
Well, super duper cool. I guess we'll have to wait and see. That's definitely one that's going to be. And the one thing I just do want to say, I drove a lot of these too, and it was kind of fun because I've also driven a lot of tuner cars, and these are shops that'll modify new cars. They'll put a V8 in a Solstice or a big motor in a Corvette, and there's a certain feel to them. They don't feel factory. And with this generation CTS-V, everybody was saying like, oh my gosh, it's a factory tuner car, right? Because they put this monster motor. To me, I was driving and I'm like, oh, this kind of feels like a tuner car. Like it just didn't have that perfect new car manufactured integration. And I didn't think that was bad. I thought that added some character, but that was one of the weird quirks to this thing that I'm not sure everybody gets, but super cool. If it gets 6 figures, I'd be pretty happy. Now there's a couple on your list that you're watching. Why don't you tell us about them?
Hey, I've got a 61 Mercedes-Benz coming up at the Mecum sale in Indy. Now, the Mecum Indy sale is, traditionally been a great sale for performance cars, especially muscle cars. I think it's interesting they have this car here. Just to point it out, it's $1.6 million to $1.8 million.
Oh my
is
gosh.
the
That's like going money.
is the estimate, and I don't, hey, I don't know. It could do it. It is a very, very nice car in great colors. So it's got a lot of things going for it. I'm putting that out there as one to watch, and that sale's coming up pretty shortly. So
Why to watch? Because if it gets this money, suddenly it's lifted all those sort of generation Benz sports cars?
They could be ready for another little bump up. I am not sure about that, but they only made 1,858 of the 300 SL Roadsters. This is 61, not exactly late production because they made 62, and actually maybe a few of them snuck out in 1963. Graphite gray with black is a really, really cool color. It's a lot. Unfortunately, red is not my color on these cars. For a lot of people, it is because red's a great sports car color. But the graphite gray, just looks a little more subtle. It looks like something more James Bond than a
Mm.
WWE wrestler would have ordered. No, so.
Now, Dave, this is the same car that's the Gullwing, right? Am I that dumb? Did I?
It's
Uh-oh.
the continuation. Look, the Gullwing is a completely different car in many, many, many ways. It has the same kind of look. For me, I like the Gullwing. I like the Gullwings better to look at than to drive. I like the Roadsters even better to drive than to look at.
Why?
Well, number one, I can fit in them. Number two, it's not an easy bake oven like the Gullwings can be on a hot day. There is no air conditioning. Those windows don't roll down; they snap out, and so there's a whole bunch of heat related issues with that. Plus, getting in and out is no longer any fun.
It's
So but I like the Roadsters. So
But you guys in the Hagerty valuation department talk about the Gullwing as the barometer for the market, and what you're saying here is this convertible could be worth more than the Gullwing.
It's possible. We've had that happen. It's been like a horse race. Sometimes we're seeing
Mm.
the Roadsters more than the Gullwing. Often we see the Gullwings more than the Roadster. The gold standard is obviously the very, very late Roadsters and the very first of the 54 Gullwings, which they made some aluminium copies. The alloy cars are worth the most, followed by all the rest.
Okay, let me throw a theory out.
Hmm.
Is that because the buyers of either of these cars are getting up in years and really don't want to deal with getting in a Gullwing and therefore driving up the values of the convertible?
There's something to that, I think,
Oh,
but the other side of it is that the practical nature of the Roadster is much more so than the Gullwing. The Gullwing is a piece of sculpture, whereas the Roadster is something you can still use on an everyday basis. Take it on the California Mille, take it on all kinds of things where you might not be quite as happy in
I
a.
could take that rally car in the Calamile.
Okay, you got a ticket to that because we can go.
I'll have to work on that.
Okay,
Okay.
need a navigator. I'm
I'll
always
be watching
available.
that one.
Yeah.
And then there's another one you threw in there. I was excited to see you did there. Tell us about it. What intrigued you? All that stuff.
Well, it's a 2021 McLaren Elva Roadster. Okay, so not something you see all the time, and this thing is in that kind of purplish, slimy lizard look color combination. It's got an estimate of 1,700,000 to $2 million. It's a 91 mile car. A car you never ever see. That's all. That's why I put it in there. Uh,
It's a super weird car. This is basically a McLaren, whatever 720 or whatever number with no roof, no windshield, right?
How about this? It's a McLaren does Koenigsegg. Now think of it that way. So now we got bookends of the cars we're talking about because it
Oh.
kind of satisfies the same thing. It's the topless roadster look. It's got all that going on, and it's got the McLaren name. So it's going to be interesting to watch to see what happens with this car.
I'm with you. Yeah, this is like back to my theory about how many of these things could be fetching seven-figure prices,
Hmm.
and especially something like this. And especially in this color. I mean, it is just like you got to figure there's going to be 5 people in the crowd, maybe not even, that think this is the great color for this car, this purplish. Although I'm kind of colorblind, so Am I missing something, or do you really like it?
Well, I think hey, if you're going to be, if you're going to be a bear, why not be a grizzly, right? I mean, go crazy and make it, your color and what you want. They made 149 of these things. This is car number 122. Very, very rare worldwide. I just think it's such an outrageous car that yeah, it's worth noting. It's not something that I'll be bidding on because I'm going to fall a little short of that 1.7, but we'll see what happens.
Well, this speaks to one of the tenets you always tell me, like, dude, rarity counts,
Hmm.
and this is a rare car if that's all they have.
Hmm.
Um, well, we'll certainly be watching. We'll be back in a couple of weeks. Dave, great time. It's May. I've already been out in some of my cars. We're seeing more cars and coffee happening here in Michigan. So I just feel so grateful we're out of that winter. Any final words from you?
Yeah, get out and drive again.
Right. Of course. How could I forget that? Please get out and drive, everybody. Well, thank you, everybody, for listening. We would like to try and get some questions going, so leave them in the comments. We'll do our best to answer them. We'll catch you next time on No Reserve.